Hi everybody, this is Jennifer from The Best Thing Ever by Jen, where I talk about my favorite things that I call the best thing ever, even though not everything can be the best thing ever, and I recognize that. I'm going to call these sessions Jen's Pens. I have really gotten into fountain pens lately, and this first video I'm going to do is my top 5 fountain pen supplies. I've been using fountain pens for about a year and a half, and I got these supplies as they trickled in, so I thought this video might help you. If you want to get these up front, they're not terribly expensive and they're going to help you a lot in your fountain pen journey. Enjoy! Alright, so these are my top 5 tools for newbies to use with fountain pens. A couple of these I got right off the bat thanks to Goulet pens, and a couple of them I didn't think I would need, but absolutely I probably should have gotten right to start with. So let's get started. The first one is a bulb syringe, and this is one of the things that Goulet recommended, and I agree 100%. You should get one of these right off the bat, and the reason is for cleaning the pens. So I'm going to show you on this Platinum Preppy that does not have any ink in it right now. So when you go to clean your pen, you're going to have ink in the nib, in the feed, and also in either the cartridge or the converter. These don't come with a converter, but what I do is I cheat and I take the ink out of the cartridge and clean that out, which I'll show you on another must-have. And then you're going to need to clean the ink out of the nib, and this is the feed. So what you do is you take the bulb syringe and you fill it up with water, and then you hook it up here. You just push it right in the end, and then you gently squeeze the water through, and it's going to flush out the entire nib and feed. I have to do this a few times to get it to go all the way through to clear out all the ink, and I also dab it on a paper towel to help draw the ink through the nib and the feed a little bit faster. So I end up doing this a few times, but yes, absolutely, this is much easier than just having a faucet, run water through, and probably take forever. I have never done it that way. I've only done it with the bulb syringe, which is very fast and very appreciated. The next thing that is an absolute must-have is a blunt tip needle with a syringe. You can order these from Goulet as well. I ordered these from Goulet. They came in a 2-pack. And what these are for is for cleaning and also for adding ink samples to pens that are harder to get in. So as far as cleaning goes, you can use these to clean an ink cartridge or an ink converter. This one is a cartridge. What I do is I fill this up with water. There would be some ink in here. I just insert it into the punctured end and squirt the water through, and it is amazing how much ink it takes out right away. So that's one way to use it. The other way to use it is with an ink sample. If you need to get all the way to the bottom of that vial, then you put the needle in, draw the ink out, and in my case, I often fill these up this way because there's no other way to fill a cartridge with a different kind of ink without a syringe. So I'll pull the ink sample in, push it into the syringe. The thing that you really have to watch out for with this is that you don't put too much in. So either go slowly or fill it with water first, empty your syringe, and then pull the water out, and that way you can find out how much liquid actually fits in the converter. I found that it's usually 1 milliliter or less. So you can play with that. So there's 2 ways to use this in general. I'm sure there are more ways, but those are the things that I use it for. The next thing on my list is actually a glass dip pen. I did not think about this when I got my fountain pen, and I thought it would kind of be sacrilege to get another pen when I have a fountain pen. This has actually been critical for me. I have a lot of ink samples. I probably have almost 100 at this point. I think I ordered like maybe 10 when I started. I was like, oh, I don't need money more than this. Yeah, that didn't happen. So what I do now is I use the dip pen to swatch my inks, because if you use the fountain pen, you're gonna have to clean this out almost every time. And when you're cleaning, there's a bit of water that gets in the feed and the nib. And if you use this like a dip pen, so if you're dipping it in the sample, flushing it, and then dipping it in a new sample, you're gonna still have water in here, and it might actually dilute the color a little bit. And it takes forever. So when I started swatching inks, I started to use a dip pen, and it was so much faster. These are not the greatest writers. This is a cheap one from Amazon. It came very rough on the tip, so I ended up using something else to smooth it out. And the benefit to doing it this way is that you dip it in real quick, swish it in some water. I use 2 cups of water, so 1 to actually rinse it out, and then 1 clear to get whatever color is left over on there, and then I just use a paper towel to wipe it off. So the benefit to doing this is that, 1, you have a consistent nib that you're writing with every time. So I can actually get a sense of what inks are wetter or drier just by using this consistent nib size. And then this is a good representation of what a broad nib would look like. It puts down a heavy layer of ink. So I really recommend getting a glass dip pen. It may sound weird, but I still recommend it. So hopefully that helps somebody. If you don't care that much about swatching inks or knowing what they're going to look like, then you probably don't need it. But a lot of times the ink looks different in the tube, and I don't have a great memory. So knowing what it looks like on paper before I actually put it in a pen helps a great deal. The next thing that I have on my list is a brass sheet, and you can get these from Goulet as well. You can tell I order a lot from Goulet. So these are they come in a pack of 2. These are for cleaning out your nib if something gets stuck in between the tines. It's not recommended to do this because it can void a warranty. So do this at your own risk, and probably with a cheap pen. This is the Jenn Shark pen. It's so super cute. And I have tried to use this with a couple shimmer inks, and they don't work well. Sometimes the shimmer gets stuck in the nib here. This is not a great example to use with the brass sheet, because this is a hooded nib. You don't get to see the entire nib. But what you do is you take the nib, and you're actually going to floss it right in between the tines, and you just pull it gently, and it will pull whatever's stuck in there right out. Usually for me it's the shimmer if it got clogged, and it'll just come right out of there. Again, this can damage the feed and the nib, so do it at your own risk. But I have found this to be very helpful with the cheaper pens, especially when I was learning and tinkering. The other thing that I've had to do, because I dropped a couple pens while I was learning, is if you need to pull the tines apart a little bit, either to widen them or to, in my case, fix them, then you can put a brass sheet in and gently pull it, and it can separate the tines a little bit that way. Again, be careful, you'll void a warranty, you might break something, but in my case, I really wish I would have had these up front just to use with my cheaper pens. The 5th and last thing is also a potential warranty voider, so be careful again. This is micro mesh, and this I also got from Goulet. And this is used to smooth out fountain pen nibs that are way too rough. In my case, the first pen that I got was a Pilot Metropolitan Fine because I really wanted a fountain pen and they were out of a medium at that point. So this is a very fine nib. This is also one of the poor pens that fell victim to my dropping it. So it was pretty bent and also was even rougher than when I got it. It was pretty rough when I got it, and I didn't know at that point that most fine nibs are a tiny bit scratchy. And I in particular, which comes as a shock to no one who knows me, but I didn't know that I would be this particular about how the fountain pen feels. In this case, I really like a smooth nib. I don't like it to catch on the paper. I want to just see the ink. I don't need to feel the nib, and I don't want to feel like I'm doing something wrong by digging into the paper, or that it's going over. It feels like it's the paper's coming up with it. There's a difference between a nib that's misaligned or too scratchy, and there's a difference between feedback. I don't like either of those. It's not supposed to be scratchy. It's not supposed to tear the paper, but I don't like either of those things. So I did decide this is not a horribly expensive pen, and if I wanted to keep it and use it, I had to do something. So what I did with this one is I fixed the tines, I bent them back into place, and then I used the micro mesh. What you do is you just do a couple swirls, very few at a time, and Goulet has a video on this too. I recommend you watch that. But what it does is it smooths out the nib, and I used it both on this one and my TWSBI Eco in Eco T in a 1.1 stub. This was the first victim of dropping. This one was bent really badly. It would not even write for a very long time. So over a few, I think it was like 6 months, I worked on it off and on, and finally got it bent mostly back to where it would write. It was still a little bit scratchy, but this one had always been a bit scratchy. When I first got it, I thought that perhaps it was a shimmer that was getting caught when it was coming out. This was my first, well, no, this was my second fountain pen, so I didn't know that it wasn't supposed to catch like that. So I have a feeling either the tines were misaligned from the get-go, or this is just got a weird rough spot on it. So again, I figured this nib was already ruined. I decided to use the micro mesh on it. Once I got the tines back in place, it wrote, but it wasn't smooth enough for me. So again, I used the micro mesh, did a couple figure eights, and this is actually a very smooth, nice nib for me now, and I was able to ink it back up with the original one that I wanted to put in, which is the very pretty Diamine Pink Champagne, and it works really well for me now. So those are my top 5. I do have a few bonus items I wanted to throw in. So the first one is a loop. You don't need a loop, but if you would like to check if the tines are aligned, you can use one. I ended up getting one just because I dropped mine and I had so many issues that I wanted a specific feel out of the fountain pen. This one I got on Amazon. I believe Goulet also has probably a nicer one than that. The other thing is silicone grease. This one came with my TWSBI. Goulet also sells it separately. And what this does is it helps to seal the threads a little bit if you want to make sure you're not getting any air in there. In the case of the Platinum Preppy, you can actually what they call eyedropper it, where you don't have to use a cartridge or a converter if you don't want to. You can put the ink right in the barrel so you can see the ink in there. I'm gonna get my red one because, oh, there it is, right there. So I did it with this Platinum Preppy. I have Diamine Wild Strawberry. This is my favorite red. I think this is beautiful. And so what I did was I put silicone grease on the threads in here so it wouldn't leak out. I have little O-ring to make sure that it doesn't leak there, and that keeps it from leaking. And it also helps lubricate if you have a piston filler. This helps lubricate that also. So there are many uses for it. I'm glad it came with my TWSBI. So that's a good one to pick up if you don't have a pen that it came with. And then the last thing is a baby bottle nipple cleaner, which I did not think I would need, but I did. I had one of these left over from when I had my little girl a long time ago, and it really is sort of the perfect size to get in and clean either the walls of the converter or any place deep in the pen, like if you have some stuff in the pen cap that's hard to get out. In one of the cases, I used one of the copper shimmer inks and the copper just would not come out. So I ended up having to go in with this brush and it worked wonderfully. So to summarize here, if I can find everything, I recommend the brass sheets, but again, caution on the warranty. The syringe with the blunt tip. The micro mesh, again, warranty. Please use on very cheap pens you don't mind ruining. The glass dip pen. And the wonderful little bulb syringe here. Bonus items are the little baby bottle brush, the loop, and the silicone grease. So I hope that helps you. Let me know in the comments if you have any other suggestions or anything I missed, or if this helped you. And I will talk to you next time. Bye.